comments? Good evening. Hello, hello. This is the, excuse me, out there. Hello? This is the call to order. That means please stop talking. Thank you. Good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I call to order this meeting of the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the agenda are in the wall pocket as you enter the room. This evening is a bit unusual. We've swapped the meeting time with the Planning Committee. We have only one item on our agenda, safety concerns of the east side of Keene. We have 4 public communications, and those individuals will be invited to speak. And there's also a communication from Council Filio. Council Workman is going to serve as our timekeeper, and I ask you to please respect the cards when she holds them up. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones. You can sit or stand if you like. Identify yourself by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the clerk's office until Tuesday, 1 p.m. My plan is that I will recognize the residents that sent the letters to the council. Each of those individuals will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, and the committee can ask them questions if they wish. I will then ask the city manager for comments, who will speak about current city initiatives and limits to what the city can do, realizing we are not prevention or recovery specialists, but we do collaborate with those who do. The meeting will then open to the public. Each individual who wishes to speak, 3 minutes, please. And Council Workman's going to hold up a card. There's a lot of people, and I suspect you all want to speak, so please be prepared. In addition, there are comment cards somewhere.
Your mic.
My mic is on.
I can't hear you.
In addition, should I start over? No. All right. The short and long of it is there are comment cards if you don't want to speak. This meeting will end at 9 o'clock or sooner. And if it's not yet 9 o'clock, I will recognize individuals for a second time. This meeting is going to be polite and civil. Anything else, and I will recess the meeting. All remarks are to be made to and through the chair. No personal attacks or back and forth arguing. Try not to repeat what previous speakers have said, so be prepared with what you're going to say. And I'm saying it again about the 3-minute timing. It's difficult, I know. Now, taking the chair's perspective, a couple of personal observations that I would like to share with you all. This evening, we are not going to end homelessness, drug abuse, and criminal activity. It's not going to happen tonight. We cannot go back to the Keene, as some think it was in 1960. 100-night shelter is a reality. It's not leaving. They may make some changes, but it is a reality. 100-night, these are my personal observations. You won't hear again. 100-night shelter is not solely responsible for the problems we are discussing tonight. Homeless individuals are not going to go away. Almost no one that I'm aware of wants to be homeless. Our new residents are people and deserve to be treated with respect. We need to come together and develop plans that will assure that all residents feel and are safe in their neighborhoods. This evening, city staff will take notes and will create a report back. I expect that report will likely be ready by the November MSFI meeting. There may be some things that could be implemented immediately. Others will require planning and funding. So all that being said, our first communication, let's see, Hillary Cipher, if you would like to come forward and address your communication, name and address for the minute taker, please. Yep,
This one?
whatever you're comfortable.
have to push? No, okay. Hi, my name is Hillary Cipher. I live on Beach Street in Keene, and I'm also the executive director at American House on Water Street in Keene.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead and address your.
Sure. I submitted a letter after reaching out to my ward councilman to find out the best direction to have East Keene safety concerns brought to the council's attention. So that's why I'm here, because I submitted that letter. Over the course of 3 to 4 weeks, there were several incidences. Both personally, I had my car broken into and checks stolen. And at American House, we had several disruptions on the property, including a violent incident, someone attempting to gain access to the building who was looking for help. Obviously, it was a scary situation to the residents who live there, and I was noticing a difference being a homeowner in the neighborhood as well. I was very pleased to see that other people had submitted letters as well, and since then, there's been a lot of conversation among East Keene residents, and from my perspective, and I haven't been able to attend meetings personally, but it's all been positive, and I think everyone's on the same page as you, Mitch, that we're not going to solve anything immediately tonight, and we all need to work together to find solutions that are manageable and make a difference so that we can maintain, homeowners and business owners' safety in the neighborhood. I would like to point out that the city of Keene and the Keene Police have been nothing but wonderful to work with. We've seen shrubbery be taken down along the bike path. We've seen the river be cleaned up. We're now seeing foot patrol on the bike path every morning from the Keene Police. I had a personal conversation with Lieutenant Nugent, who was nothing but supportive. So I highly appreciate that, and I'm happy to see that things are moving in that direction. I want it to continue. So I guess my biggest ask is, how do we come together as a neighborhood to ensure that safety continues, that things like the brand new Patricia T. Russell Park stays safe, stays clean. I am concerned about the number of needles that are found along our property lines and at the park already. I would love to see a sidewalk with lights and maybe a speed bump on Water Street. We see a lot of speeding cars down Water Street, and now with the park being there and the skate park coming up, I think there'll be a lot more traffic there, and I think that could enhance safety. Better lighting is always a great option. American House has personally toured with residents to the homeless shelter. Our residents are in full support of 100 Nights and are interested in working different programs with them. We have a lot of knowledge and wise people at our building who've been with us a long time and have a lot of ideas and have seen the city go through various changes. So our doors are wide open, both as a homeowner and a business manager. So I'm looking forward to hearing other people's ideas, how the council can help. That's why I'm here. It's a new area for me. So I'm open to feedback and hope that we can all problem solve together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another letter was received from Robert Hom. If you'd like to address it, please.
Hello, my name is Robert Hom. I live at 89 Valley Street. So we've enjoyed living on the east side of Keene for the last 22 plus years and have really enjoyed that neighborhood, continue to enjoy that neighborhood, and expect that we will enjoy that neighborhood. My letter was prompted as much by the kind of conversation and some of the incidents that we were seeing in the neighborhood that raised concerns. Raised concerns in ways that I thought were useful. It's useful to get together to begin to address the issues that are present that cause us concern. Hillary's addressed many of the same things that I have. I don't have much more to add to that. I do want to voice my appreciation, Mr. Chair, for your introductory remarks, because I think they really do address the need to be in conversation as a neighborhood and as a city to address some of the issues. Some of them are infrastructure issues. Some of them are staffing issues. I'm in full support of the kind of work that Parks and Rec did that opened up the shrubbery and took away some of the, or I should say rather increased the sight lines so that folk could see what was going on. I'm concerned about sidewalks. If you're an elderly person, I'm approaching that age, I guess, but I don't need a walker yet. However, There are sidewalks all around East Keene that are just unsafe for folk who have any kind of mobility issues. Consider anybody with a walker walking on Roxbury Street on the south side of the street. Look at those blacktop sidewalks and see just how undulating and cracked and broken they are. And that's true for many of the streets in that neighborhood. I'm concerned for what's happening to properties on the west end of Church Street. And not sure what's happening in terms of code enforcement, but it occurs to me that if we're not helping homeowners in that part of Keene, or landlords for that matter, to be good citizens, that we're not doing ourselves, the neighborhoods, the landowners, anyone a favor. We need to be diligent about keeping each other, working towards a safer community. I have nothing but praise for the response of city services, fire department, and I'm particularly appreciative of the nuanced approaches that our chief of the fire department, that kind of nuance that he brings to understanding his job with folk in the community, with the way in which he addresses a response to drug overdoses. I'm aware that, it seems to me anyway, that homelessness is a state issue. We bear the brunt of it in many ways. But these are people who have mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and children, some of whose children are in our schools. And we need to be very careful about vilifying with broad brushstrokes folk who do not have adequate housing in a state where housing has become so expensive, so very expensive. So thanks for all that you do. I look forward to being a part of a conversation that looks for the kinds of communitarian answers, where folk talk with each other and do so in ways that are kind and civil, where we listen to each other and work to find solutions that really help us all. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good timing.
What was that time?
4.
That was 4 minutes.
Oh, did I go over?
No.
No, you get
No.
5. Other communication from Vicki Morton?
Vicki Morton, 275 Water Street. I'm going to read a bit of the letter that I presented because I have other stuff afterwards. We have an increase in automobile break-ins, automobile thefts, assaults, stabbings, and overdoses. Other residents have complained about finding human feces on our bike path, used needles on our sidewalk and our streets, aggressive individuals on the bike path. Floral displays have been stolen from our front porch, along with garden statues and a rock display. I found one of our granite posts partially out of the garden, as if someone was coming back later to steal that one as well. Residents on Victoria Street have a go-kart, a golf cart, and a dirt bike, none of which display registration plates, that they ride around the neighborhood and for trips back and forth to Cumberland Farms. Earlier this week, when I wrote the letter, 2 cars aligned at the stop sign at Valley Street and drag raced across Water Street and down Victoria Street. A cable installation company parks their bucket trucks towing cable spool dollies in the northbound lane, effectively hindering the flow of traffic. I understand that we have 9 open, unfilled police positions, and I was informed tonight now that's 10. I have spoken with a couple of city councilors about utilizing those payroll funds to create a supplementary auxiliary force to support our existing force. This auxiliary could answer the lesser priority calls, leaving officers available for more serious, higher priority calls. I am thankful that we only have the 10 unfilled positions and not the complete force. I hope we can find ways to support our fire and police personnel. I've had many positive interactions and appreciate how difficult their daily shifts can be. Since I wrote the letter, I've been attending some neighborhood meetings. I've been talking with personnel, Parks and Rec, Public Works, Fire Department, Police Department personnel. And I've gotten a different perspective on some pieces. But one person asked directly, why do you feel unsafe in your neighborhood? And it was about 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, and there was a man in his stocking feet trying to get into our house. He's on the porch, he's banging on the door, he's attempting to push the door open, and my son came over and enticed this gentleman to walk away. And he walked down Water Street where the police officers were able to secure him, and then a police officer came back and said, "Can we look around?" I said, "Absolutely, look all you want." On the other side of our two parked cars were his shoes. And in front of our two parked cars, in front of the garage doors, was a huge pile of vomit. Later, when the sun came up, we found his backpack and his hat on the other side of the street at another neighbor doorstep. It is unnerving and it's scary when somebody's banging on your door and they're trying to get in. And we really don't have a lot of resources. You call the police and they're going to come when they can come, and they did. And they were very respectful and they were really great. But to sit there and have somebody banging on your door when you're telling them, the police are coming, go away, and they don't go away. So that adds to our personal sense of lack of safety in our neighborhood. Jim Craiglow was the president of Antioch University and the chancellor of president of Antioch, New England, and chancellor of Antioch University. And he had an open door policy, and you could go in and you could vent all you wanted to, but before you walked out the door, you had to have some possible solutions to these, whatever you were venting about. So in honor of Jim Craiglow, I want to offer the following. And these are my action steps, and I noticed that you had postcards for people who didn't want to speak. So I would like to leave these behind and as possible action steps. I think our police, fire, public works, and park and rec staff all do a really good job with what they have and what they face on a daily basis. Unfortunately, this is not enough with our mounting issues. They are our boots on the ground. They live with the problems every shift that they work. And I believe that they have the solutions to many of our problems, or at least they can provide feedback for many of our problems. I believe we need a safe, anonymous, confidential mechanism where they can provide suggestions, feedback, and propose solutions. If Keene doesn't want human waste on the sidewalks and whatever, we need to provide public bathrooms. If we're going to dig up downtown, that's an ideal time to put in public bathrooms. And also at the park, there are bathrooms there, but they're locked, so that doesn't help us. I believe we have, people have pride, if people have pride in their homes, they act outside the home in that way. I think we need to deputize, that's it, okay? I'll leave them over there. Thank you. You want them over there, or do you want to hand them some, okay.
Thank you. Krishni and Ed Paul, or either, or both.
Ed is homesick, so it's just Krishni Paul today. Krishni Paul, 84 Valley Street. Thank you for letting me address the committee. You have my letter, so I'm not going to reiterate anything that's already been said. My main concern, safety. Listening to what Vicky said and what Hillary said, right now, my 86-year-old mother-in-law lives with us. She lives on the bottom floor of our apartment. And the days that I go to work at the insurance company, I'm afraid of any of those kinds of issues happening to her. So safety is my number one concern. My second concern is the image of East Keene. I've heard firsthand knowledge of realtors not wanting outsiders to move to Keene. And I can clearly say that my friends, the property owners of East Keene, want to live. We want to live in East Keene. This is our property. This is where we want to live. We have taken a lot of pride, and we want the city to help us be safe, project a better image of East Keene, which I don't think is happening. I happened to flag down a state rep who was driving down Valley Street the day 100 Nights was opening. He was here visiting. And I went over some issues with him, and his response was, "Why are you surprised? The city has always treated East Keene like a second-class citizen." That image has to change because we want to live there. We are happy where we are. We take pride in our homes. So we want to be safe, and you have to help us with that. And you have to help us have a better image of East Keene. So that's where we are. That's what I'm coming here to you, because we are property owners. We pay the same kind of property taxes, water, we do everything. Most of us volunteer at 100 Nights, Community Kitchen. We are property owners. We are taxpayers. So we want the same kind of respect that the rest of Keene gets. And I'm not sure we are getting that 100%, or that's not the image that's out there. So we want that changed. I'm glad that Pat Russell Park is here. I'm glad that the skate park, those are nice things coming into our neighborhood. Now we want you to help us maintain that. Church Street, some of the households, the tenants who are living there, the landlords, need to be held accountable. The sidewalks are in really bad shape, and Rob is right. Roxbury Street sidewalk, I tried to run on that, and I end up running in the middle of the street. It's really unsafe. Some of the landlords need to be held accountable. The tenants are not going to squeak on their landlords. Have you seen the price of rent in Keene? They don't want to get evicted. So it's up to the city to help some of these landlords, who most of them seem like they're out-of-state landlords, need to be held accountable. That's going to change the image of Keene. So we want to be safe, and we want East Keene to look and be respected. So that's what we are looking for.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, city councilors and the fire chief and the mayor who came to our community forums, thank you very much. That was very nice to have you listen to us. Thank you.
Okay, another communication from Council Filio.
So basically, my initial communication here was, for those that aren't familiar, I had called a homeless advocate in Keene and asked if he wanted to get together with a cup of coffee because of the reports that I was hearing about the vast amount of homelessness and the tent cities that were through various parts of Keene. And he said, no, I won't have coffee with you, but do you want a pair of hiking boots? And I said, absolutely. He said, put them on, we're going for a walk. So we did. And I'm a lifetime resident of Keene. I'm not naive. I know what's going on. But when I walked out, and this was basically behind the Hannaford's area, heading out along the power lines, I was actually flabbergasted at the amount of homeless camps that were out there. I've mentioned before, it was like a subdivision, one after the other after the other. Some obviously abandoned, some active, but just dozens of them. The other thing that caught my attention was two things. One, the amount of used needles that were spread everywhere. I started to take photos of them, but there were so many of them, it looked like I was taking the same photo over and over again. The other part was the amount of trash. Now, I know when somebody says the word trash, some people might think a trash barrel, because I heard comments of, maybe you ought to bring out trash bags. Well, some of the advocates had been bringing out trash bags. The trash bags were still in the boxes on top of the trash. And we're talking about trash. On some of these areas, we're talking acres. We're not talking a dumped over barrel or two dumped over barrels. And I'll repost my photos if anybody hasn't seen them. A couple of them were as far as the eye could see. It was like being up the landfill, the old dump. It was like being up there. And what caught my eye was also, with the sun on it, you could see the glistening of the needles. And that's why the hiking boots. It wasn't walk through mud. It was in case I stepped on a needle. It wouldn't pierce through my boot. And I did step on multiple because I felt them crunch underneath my foot. When we're talking trash, this isn't something that some well-meaning neighbors can go in with a pair of gloves and scoop up. This is a hazmat site. This is not barrels. This is not dumpsters. You see the trucks that empty the dumpsters into them, especially on Mondays in Keene. It would take probably 4 or 5 of those trucks going out there, and it would fill all of them. This is a hazmat cleanup. The amount of needles, the amount of human waste, the amount of everything in that pile is not for volunteers to clean up. Obviously, this is on private property. This is not something the city can just go on without being asked. And as you're aware, the city's been asked to go on it before and took some heat because it felt like we were just moving people off for no reason. If you had seen these sites, you would understand why the city and the owners of the property took action. Anybody that's out there is out there illegally, but once again, the city, there's only so much a city can do. This isn't the only site. There's multiple sites. The one behind Coles has become active again. Somebody sent me a couple photos today up in Robin Hood Park in the woods. We know along the bike trail heading up towards Water Street. We know up towards Beaverbrook Falls. They're everywhere, and they are a problem. There is different levels of homelessness, and I'm sure we'll be getting into that. I am not criticizing anybody that's out there. As I've said, I'm sure nobody grows up thinking, I want to be homeless and live in a tent in the woods. But many are homeless living in a tent in the woods, and obviously, they're injecting drugs with needles because the needles are everywhere. And that's a problem too. We don't want an innocent person going through the woods stepping on needles. So with that, I'll leave it at that. Obviously, there's a lot more I could say, but that was the gist of it. Look at that. No mercy. So anyhow, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and I really want to hear everybody else's comments along with city staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
44 seconds to spare.
Really?
Oh, he'll fill it.
Hang on for a second. I got more. Thank you.
Okay, so next, city manager, if you,
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the work that the city has doing in regards to homelessness over the last couple of years. And as you know, homelessness is a complex issue, and it's not going to be resolved by one organization, one community alone. It's going to take all of us working together. But as a city, we are often left dealing with the symptoms of this much bigger problem. So when we talk about crime in neighborhoods, trash, needles, it's really a symptom of the larger issues related to homelessness. And to make meaningful change, we really need to engage our regional partners and the state, because a lot of this is really beyond us. And, we've worked really hard to try to do that. And as you also know, the Homeless Housing Stability Group, the committee worked for a year last year, almost the entire year. It was an ad hoc committee of the city. The report came out in December of 2022. And at the same time, we undertook a housing analysis for the city, which included a housing inventory, review of market conditions, and evaluation of vulnerable existing housing stock in neighborhoods. And this study is on our website if anyone wants to take a look. It's really very helpful because it's being used by the city to create strategies and zoning to encourage housing development in the areas that we need. We also made several zoning changes to encouraging housing, densification in the downtown, smaller lot sizes in the rural district, and accessory dwelling units in all zones on both attached and detached structures. All of these things are important parts of the puzzle. We are currently undertaking an effort to create an on-street parking program. Parking is often a barrier to more housing opportunities in our neighborhoods. And this is all just within the last couple of years. The membership of the Housing Stability Committee was a very diverse group of stakeholders, but we also had a lot of participation in the audience from our nonprofits, from our churches, and we even had homeless representatives and, of course, counselors who participated throughout that year-long committee process. And the report is actually quite comprehensive, and it is also on our website. If you type in housing stability in the search bar, you'll see the committee's landing page and agendas and minutes of all the meetings and the final report. The report contains recommendations related to homeless support and transition to permanent housing, increasing available housing, and regional engagement and collaborative solutions. Several of the recommendations have been implemented, and there has been progress made with most of the remaining items. And I encourage anyone in the audience who hasn't looked at that report to take a look. And it's important that we not attempt to recreate that work, but instead continue to build on those efforts. We know what the issues are, and each year, based on capacity in our departments and budget constraints and your city council goals, we attempt to prioritize how to continue to move these and other work plans forward. A handful of towns and cities in the state are carrying a disproportionate burden related to homelessness, and Keene is one of them. The existence of shelters and other nonprofits providing services within our borders means we are not only serving our residents, but others from the region, across the state, and even a small percentage of people who are from beyond our state borders. And I used this example before, but I've worked in 3 other communities, and communities that do not have a shelter or these services. When someone comes into their Human Services office and fills out their application, the first thing they do is call 211 to find an available shelter. And if there's an open space in Keene, we would transport them or pay to have them transported there. And that is how the other communities are mostly dealing with homeless when they come to their departments if they don't have shelters within their border. Yesterday in a meeting with our Human Services Director, I asked for some statistics to share with you. Of the homeless individuals that are being served right now at the SES shelter, 28% of the shelter beds are from Keene, and the rest are from elsewhere, either elsewhere in the county or elsewhere in the state. 100 nights, 39% of their bed nights are being served, are serving Keene, are people from Keene. 100 nights had a year-round capacity of 24 and utilized churches for overflow. This year, the year-round capacity is now 48, and we will be planning for overflow again because a percentage of those who are homeless, as you know, and you heard Councilor Filio talking about it, are living in the woods for a variety of reasons. It could be addiction, it could be mental health, it could be because they have a pet and they don't want to give up their pet to go into a shelter. It's a variety of reasons. But they will come in on the coldest nights, and that's when we need the help of our churches to manage that overflow. For the past couple of years, the city has taken a greater leadership role in the Regional Homeless Coalition, participated in the state's housing groups, pursued and were successful with the help of Senator Fenton at making a change to the state's welfare laws to ensure that communities like Keene can seek reimbursements when providing services to residents from other communities. I am currently working with the senator on more bills for this upcoming session. In addition, over the past couple of years, we have worked with property owners to clean up a few large encampments. Again, as Councilor Filio was saying, these are massive encampments over decades of time that have accumulated trash. There was one near the Stone Arch Bridge that we worked with the property owners and the state to clean up. Currently, we are working again in the area behind Kohl's and the Pearl Street area. Last year, we worked with the owners of the property behind Hannaford's, who issued a no trespass order. They installed fencing and created a relationship with the Hannaford's manager to monitor the property. This property hasn't yet been cleaned up and remains a magnet for homeless reencampment. Those were many of your pictures, Councilor Filio, were the sites behind Hannaford. Capacity is always an issue. There's much more work to be done than there is people to do it. However, we have been strategic and thoughtful as to how we prioritize the work that we undertake. A few months ago, I created a city homeless task force made up of leadership across our departments to discuss and brainstorm solutions and be creative. You know, we've tried a couple of different brainstorming activities to try and think outside of the box, and it's been helpful. But dealing with some of these symptoms of this larger issue, we've also had to brainstorm solutions to that, like get creative on how we're cutting back different areas of the city, look at our lighting, and try to think about, you know, all of the things that we can do related to our infrastructure. Andy Bohannon's team and facility has been clearing brush and other debris in the problem areas, and today the Public Works Director and I walked around the Beaver Brook area that also needs to be cleaned, and that will require actually a brush hog to go in there, and it's done every few years along the brook. Andy Bohannon, with the assistance of Public Works, is evaluating lighting and fencing option on the trails in East Keene and potentially around Pat Russell Park. And it would require a significant amount of fencing. I looked at it today, and in order to secure that back area, the fence would have to go quite a distance. And then we took a look at some quick math regarding solar lights. Many of our trails have lighting, and that's one of the things that we've been talking about, whether or not we needed to expand the lighting. It's approximately $8,000 for one solar light, and if installed every 400 feet, it would be over $100,000 per mile. So that's something that we would need to look at in the capital plan and work with our bicycle and pedestrian advocates to raise money for. The police department, and it was mentioned tonight, I'm really glad it was already noticed, has added directed patrols to the East Keene neighborhoods. The fire chief and Andy Bohannon have been talking with Morgan, which I saw her in the audience. Hi, Morgan. At the Serenity Center about needle exchange program and possibility of expanding the needle disposal options. In addition, the fire chief and Andy are looking for additional locations for Narcan distribution. You know, we're having a lot of overdoses, and the availability of Narcan is saving people's lives because we can't possibly get there fast enough. Andy has been talking with property owners about clearing an area that abuts the 100 Nights fence line, which has become problematic. If you've noticed that area, there's trees, and that's owned by a separate private property owner who is willing to work with us on that. We are currently addressing a lighting issue near the basketball court. There has been increased activity over there, and so we had to make some changes to lighting and times of lighting, when it comes on and when it comes off. I was over there today. They're working on that. I have a meeting in the next couple of weeks with 100 Nights to discuss winter plans. I understand from the Community Development Office, the UCC Church is going through a process to set up for overflow capacity for the winter months. This is crucial. And I'm really happy to see that everyone's thinking about this and we're planning for this ahead. And one of the questions that that Councilor Filio asked me yesterday was about library. You know, oftentimes we see people in need of services at the library. It's one of the places they can use Wi-Fi. It's warm or it's cool, depending upon the outside temperature. And the library back in January of 22 set up social service agency hours to help bring services to those in need who frequent the library. And I've seen several different organizations have joined this effort. I know SES has one coming up there. They'll help people apply for different services. Natalie, our Human Services Director, continues her work on the Welfare Association to advocate for all communities to be part of the solution. You know, we've been working really hard to try to get all of the communities around us to understand that we need to work on a solution together. I'm working with, like I mentioned, Senator Fenton on some additional legislative changes. And we're talking about one right now related to landlords accepting Section 8 vouchers holders. You know, one of the things that we're focused on is helping people to get from the shelters into housing. And oftentimes it will involve something like a Section 8 voucher, which helps or entirely pays for the rent, depending upon the situation. And there's lots of barriers to that, so we're looking at incentives and ways to eliminate barriers. We are talking to the state about ways to encourage mobile support services instead of requiring everyone in need of service to congregate in a handful of communities across the state. Bring the services to them and get the other communities to provide supportive transitional housing in their communities as well. I serve on the Governor's Opioid Abatement Commission, and we've been meeting with our local service providers regarding substance misuse and advocating on the commission for our needs in this section of the state. I've heard that we need more sober housing for women. We have some sober housing for men, but once individuals go through their treatment programs, there's often not a place for women to go. And so we've advocated for that at the Governor's Commission. I have a grant application ready to go for a social worker position at the PD. The person would proactively follow up on drug-related calls to connect the person with the appropriate services. Our police do not have the time to do that, and this would be a proactive position where they would follow up on the police call log and connect them to whatever services they may need. And this person would work closely with places like the Doorway and the Serenity Center to make sure that we have built these strong relationships. And yes, as mentioned, we built public restrooms as part of the Pat Russell Park. We are waiting for a park to come in. Once that park comes in, those bathrooms will be open, and they will be programmed from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to be open. But I will tell you, we have already experienced vandalism. So, some of the issues we've had long before my arrival here, you had public bathrooms, and we had a lot of vandalism issues, and ultimately they were closed. But we are looking at other public bathroom options. There's an innovative solution. Someone in their letter had mentioned the Portland Loo. We've talked about the Portland Loo in the past for Gilboa Ave. There's actually some better options out there now, and so we'll be having that discussion with the council during the CIP process when we look to including projects over the next several years and timing it with the downtown project. So I guess in closing, I just want to say I'm happy to report back to the committee at a future meeting, as you have said, Councilor Greenwald, regarding the list of suggestions this evening. But I want to say that homelessness across the United States has increased dramatically after the conclusion of several federal COVID assistance programs. We saw a spike everywhere. And these issues will continue to grow. The city will do the best to continue to respond to all of the symptoms of the larger problems. But in my opinion, the most impactful thing that we can do in addition to that is support things like supportive housing projects, to move people from shelters into housing, support mobile support services, to bringing people to this handful of communities, support transportation options in the state to get people where they need to go, continue to work on statewide welfare law changes, find ways to use our existing shelter capacity to serve more of our community and less of the people being referred by 211 or other welfare directors. Create pathways for people to get services that they need by being proactive, things like the proposed social worker at the police department. Support mental health and other crucial support services. There is desperate need for mental health providers in our region. We have been talking to MSFS, Natick Family Services, for the last several years about trying to integrate them more into policing with us. And the state went through a process to create this mobile response for mental health crises in the state. It's not working. We've talked to Phil Weisig. It's not working like the state had intended. And these are things that we need to address if we really want to make a difference. These types of changes, while harder to accomplish, will have larger impacts on not only what we are seeing in East Keene, but in our downtown, on all of our trails, on public undeveloped land, on private land not actively monitored by property owners, and so on.
Thank you. Bottom line, I hope you all hear the city staff is really working the issue. But the reason why you're all here this evening, your observations, maybe some creative solutions and suggestions that could be worked into it. So this is now time for the public to speak. One little wrinkle in things. City councilors, I don't know how many of you are present, but we have this quorum rule, so just be good listeners, please. Sorry. So who would like to address the committee? Anyone? Anyone? Come on up. 3 minutes, thank you.
Chuck Redfern, 9 Colby Street, Keene. Couple things. As far as lighting goes, I'm not sure that solar lights are going to do it as safe as it needs to be. I'm kind of thinking hard wire. I know that's going to increase the cost, perhaps, over solar lights, although these models sound more expensive than the models that Pathways did purchase with the city quite over 5 years ago now. And the problem is somebody's approaching and you have to be literally right there before the light turns on. I have talked to Andy Bohannon about this, and he says that the lights are better now because they turn on when you're a little further out. Their sensors pick up further out. But I still think people like to be able to look down a way and see it all lit up so they know what they're walking into. You know, it's not just 20 feet away and they're right there. They want to see the whole aisle down lit up. And with LED lighting, and also with you were very innovative, or DOT was, or the city was, for the roundabouts that have just been improved down on Lower Winchester Street, you can keep the costs at a minimal. So I would recommend hardwire. You also have conduit going down the rail trail from Eastern Avenue or from downtown, all the way to the Public Works building, I think. So it might be able to fish wire through there economically. It's worth checking out. The other thing is that I just wanted to point out, there was a time I worked for Homeland Security in Concord, and the guy I worked with was a former police officer for the city of Concord. And he admitted that there was dump-offs, that they were bringing their homeless down to Keene on a fairly regular basis. I swear to God that that's, let's see, right hand, swear to God that's the truth. And so that kind of shocked me to hear that. Just one other thing, the Sentinel did a public service today. If you read the article in the public service, it told about the problems that Concord is having. I'm recommending that we establish communications with the folks in Concord because they're going through the very same problems, according to the article. So I recommend that. And also, too, I recommend bringing back the ad hoc committee and keep it ongoing, keep citizens involved, have it at the police department, have your social worker liaison involved in that. So I wish I could say more, but
You can't.
I've seen the red sheet for the last minute, so
Thank you, thank you.
thank you all.
Okay, hand in the back. City manager, are there comment cards, or? I don't know if they made it. Yes, sir.
We're good? Red is on? Yeah, red is on, right? No, green. Green? All right. It's the opposite in Concord, where the red is the on button for some reason. I'm Nick Germana, 206 Baker Street. I'm state representative for Ward 1 here in Keene, and that's part of East Keene is in my district. I lived on the corner of Water and Valley Street for 7 years. Some of my old neighbors recognize here. And I remember when we were living there right after the Great Recession hit, right? The late 2000s, early part of 2010, 11, 12, right? We also saw a spike in homelessness. A lot of what we're seeing now with Russell Park, we were seeing when it was Carpenter Park. So a lot of those issues are not really very new, right? I think we had a big spike after 2010, and then things maybe got better for a little while, and then we're seeing something like that. So these changes are in some ways not really changes. We've experienced them before. Obviously, housing is such a huge issue. It's an issue all over the state. Everybody is struggling with it. We need to keep struggling with lots of innovative approaches, like the city manager was talking about. But with the little time I have remaining, I'd like to focus especially on the question of needles. And I know there are efforts that I think we really need to kind of double down on in terms of needle exchange, needle disposal. The federal government right now is just beginning some grants to study safe injection sites in New York City and in Providence, Rhode Island. Brown University is doing some of that research. I know that's not going to happen anytime in the immediate future. But with the substance abuse problem that we have all throughout this state, we are going to continue to see substance abuse on very large levels, and it's going to be in public. So the question is, how do we mitigate the potential danger to the people who are using the drugs, right? Needle exchange being a big part of that, but also the danger that is posed to people in the community, finding needles in our parks, et cetera. So while certainly there are so many pieces to this puzzle, I would encourage us to think as creatively and boldly as possible about how we address the issue of substance abuse through needle exchange, needle disposal, and down the line, at least a discussion about safe injection sites.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, in the back, the hand. Good evening. Hello.
Evening. Gabby Masali, 45 Franklin Street, apartment 3. Oh,
Pull the microphone close.
how about now?
Better.
Okay. Gabby Masali, 45 Franklin Street, unit 3. So I'm not going to repeat too much of what other people went over, but in terms of the issue with the needles, I mean, obviously substance use is not going anywhere. I work in social services, so work very closely with a lot of people struggling with it. But I'm someone who carries rubber gloves with me. So I think the biggest issue for me is I'd like to see some needle disposal areas, boxes. I don't know what's out there in terms of it being, secure, but something that's, in my brain, it's a little bit like dog waste bags where there's places that you can grab them, because I'll pick up needles with my gloves, but I'm not going to carry them all the way to my house if I'm, running or walking a dog or something like that. So I'd like to see, some type of solution for that, and, even as an interim solution, as we figure out, the larger needle exchange programs or safe injection sites. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker. Yep.
Hello, my name is Tracy DeSteff. I live at 110 Church Street. I see that Norway Avenue Park and what happens there every day. As everyone has said, there's no easy solution. I've been a resident of Keene several years prior.
Stay close to the microphone, please.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I used to be an insurance company vice president in the Miller Forge building right next to where I live. So I am friendly with Tom and Peter. My landlord does allow Section 8. I am disabled, so I live on Section 8. I know that since I first lived on Mechanic Street right next to the fire station. And I had a service animal. And because we used to walk that block, we used to stop at China Walk Park before the church was able to block it off and contain it as what public property is to be meant to be used for. So my suggestion is, I looked up another city in Washington that has a sign on what's allowed in public areas, what's prohibited. There's 12 things. I apologize for my paper because I did this last night. So this would be the city of Keene right there, what they allow, what they don't allow. And the notifications to the public would allow fines anywhere from $35 to $500. I actually saw the police on foot on my way here. They're now holding cameras so they can actually have more behind them to defend what they're doing so it can be seen. I go outside sometimes at night, my service animal has passed away. I can see people doing drugs in the corner. The police have taken the time to monitor it. They come through and they actually put their lights back there. There's no way to help these people because some of them are helpless. They really don't care. I go down there and give them food, clothes, whatever they need when I can. I have seen the police flash their lights through there. They're trying to monitor it. I've also seen the CDC send a white van through our area, giving away money to test your blood for infectious disease purposes of data collection. If you're telling a drug addict you're gonna give them $40 cash for their blood, what do you think they're gonna do? Sell their blood. I've also gone and seen those areas to pick them up myself. I haven't seen a needle where I live. I don't know if a needle exchange would be any better. My sister's a pharmacist in Maine, and they have needle exchanges there. So I think their data is probably better than ours, so I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Yes, person with a hand up.
I'll
evening.
keep this short and sweet.
Thank-
My name is Morgan Britton, and I work over at the Keene Serenity Center. We are a recovery center, meaning we help people who have substance use disorder. I personally run the syringe service program, so we do have a needle exchange here in Keene. We do actively go out and pick up syringes if they are found. I will say that we have been out a lot more now, and we go out for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we're walking the streets of Keene. We are maybe finding 1 or 2 syringes, so social media, things get blown up. Let's be honest here. Out in the general public, you're not finding piles of syringes. So we are here. If we do get a phone call, if we get notified that there are syringes places, we will happily stop what we're doing and go and pick them up. So that is a resource that is out there for everybody. Just call us.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Someone else? All it takes is raise your hand. Yes, in the back row. Don't be shy.
My name's Chris Coates. I'm the county administrator for Chester County. I live at 30 Gilsum Street. Randy, thank you for your letter. Elizabeth, thank you for your words tonight. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for leading this conversation. I think it's the start of a conversation that I know I want to be part of. I know that Elizabeth and I have talked, and we will be at the table. I also want to tell you that when I came into this world many, many years ago now, we was born at Elliott Hospital here in Keene and went home to the corner of Church and Valley. I lived at 269 Church Street, and I grew up there for the next 17 years. These issues have been here. I couldn't go past Carpenter Street. I wasn't allowed to go down to what we call Lower Church, because of murders, because of motorcycle gangs, because of all kinds of different issues. Carpenter was not what it was today. We used to have to mow it ourselves. And it was always an issue, but it's different today. It's different. And the substance abuse issue is massive in this area. At the corrections facility here, what we used to see, about 15% of all people entering our facility is now at about 87 to 90% have some type of substance abuse. Of that group, another 80 to 85% have mental health issues. So we've become one of the, we probably are the biggest substance abuse treatment facility in the area. We're also, mental health-wise, one of the biggest facilities in the area, and we're also one of the biggest homeless shelters in the area. All the above. We've worked with Elizabeth over the last year about having people, when they leave, by law, they go out our door and we say goodbye. But we said, we're on 101, we don't want that. So we used to take them one place, we put money in the budget, and now we send them to wherever their hometown was or wherever they request, to a point. But I also wear, I'm before you tonight wearing 4 hats. All right, I'll be quick, 4 hats. One is I am the chair of Keene Housing, and we're doing everything we possibly can to bring forward housing. We have a project right now at Roosevelt School that we hope to bring 60 units over in the coming years. I'm also on the 100-night boards. I'm sort of newer to the 100-night boards, but I wanted to be on there because I wanted to know what I could do to help. I'm also chair of the United Way campaign that gives a lot of money to these organizations, and so I wanted to be part of that, and of course I'm part of the county. We want to be part of the discussion. I'm willing to be, I don't know what that means when I say it, but I know I'll be at the table as the conversation goes forward. And we want to do whatever we can to be partners as we move forward in some manner of some sort. I could go into greater detail, but I know I'm up against the clock, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Steve Bragdon, 51 Railroad Street. I haven't lived in town as long as Chris, but I've been here quite a while. And I've noticed in the last year, 6 months, a noticeable pickup in the problems that are down around my area. A lot more activity in the garage, a lot more activity underneath the entrance to the upstairs garage, a lot more activity just around the area in general, and it's not positive activity. I'd like to commend the police. They've been down there. They've done a good job of taking care of some of the problems. I think that, as most people have said here, the problems are not easily solvable. And I'm a great believer in looking at the problem from high up and coming up with a big solution. But the big solution is going to take, at a minimum, the state and the federal government. And what I'd like to see happen is that we focus a little more on the problem in the neighborhood and what we can do to fix that. I think the city's already taken a big step towards that, and hopefully that will continue. I think it's unfortunate that the city of Keene is servicing, or 60% of the homeless that the city is servicing are not from our town. And that's an issue that we can't solve. The state's got to do that for us or help us with it. Anyway, things were getting worse. They're now better. Hope they continue. Let's focus in on what we can do for the neighborhood, which is, I think, how this particular meeting started. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You missed the introductory comments, so I'll just repeat it. You have 3 minutes, please.
I did see, I was downstairs in the
Okay.
lobby. There's a legal situation which required me to downstairs in the lobby.
Okay.
I am Bradford Hutchinson. I do live at 305 Marlborough Street, and I'm a very serious candidate for mayor this year. I can't ignore that fact, and I have been paying attention to this issue for a long time. I was born in Keene, Elliott Community Hospital. I came back in 1987. Since that time, most days I've been on Main Street in Keene. For well over 20 years, I've been on downtown Keene area every day. And the past 2.5 years, especially starting in February, I began to do a migratory waterfowl habitat restoration project at Ashwheelet River Park. And so for the past 2.5 years, literally on a daily basis, the Jonathan Daniels Trail, which goes from Starbucks up to the Bill Apple Trail at the hospital, 7/10 of a mile, I ride that trail on my bicycle at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. I live on Marlborough Street, just before the ice rink. When I leave the house to go downtown on my bicycle, I typically go down to Eastern Ave, pick up the beginning of the rail trail, and go all the way down the rail trail across Water Street behind American House. I typically ride that trail at least twice a day, and often several times a day. Water Street, West Street, up to Robin Hood Park, out to Wheelock Park, behind the Lansons. The Stone Arch Bridge was mentioned. The homeless camps right behind Pat Russell Park. I today found a homeless camp in Ashwheelet River Park, just past Castle Street, the little trail to the left. I had been told that it was down by the water. It's not that far. Appears to be a female, judging by the clothes. It's only been there a couple of months. And there's 2 more homeless camps up there. In 2021, there were no homeless camps in the Ashwheelet River Park because I surveyed the entire park. In 2022, 1/10. So the 2 things to wrap it up, in the letters written tonight, a writer indicated seeing people with needles sticking out of their arms on the rail trail. I challenge that. Show me a picture, because I ride that trail every day. There's increased use, but there's nobody with needles sticking out of their arms. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and it's going to get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradford. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi, I'm Mo. I run Granita downtown on 51 Railroad Street. I first want to appreciate all the police presence. I did ask quite a few times for more walkability in the morning, early hours at 4 a.m. That's when our staff gets in to prep. They have addressed to me that they're afraid to come to work because one of our prep chefs was ran after by one of the bums to the door. She couldn't get in because you have to use the lock to get in the door. The other day, we had a customer sitting on the patio eating dinner. They're about to pay $200-300 for dinner. We had a homeless person sit on the bench and then poop right on the bench. So they're sitting on the bench pooping as you're eating dinner. It's not something you want to look at. So my solution to that is to remove all benches in town for at least a year. Downtown on Main Street, downtown by the Railroad Street, anywhere there's a bench, remove it, store it, do away with benches. Anywhere they can sit and do and lay. I got into work this morning at about 8 a.m. There's a needle on our front walkway, along with our lock was picked, and there was dirty underwear and everything laying on the bench right in front of the restaurant. So I'm kind of upset because I can't hold employees. They're afraid to come to work. And then I have to bring in my son that has to watch a woman shoot up in her arm on these benches. And he goes, "Is she a doctor?" And I have to explain to him, "No, we're going to call a doctor for her." He's like, "Okay, is she getting a shot?" Yes. So to explain that to children is one thing I don't want to do. When you guys say that there's not enough people to help, I bet everybody in this room will raise their hand and go clean up an area. I will do it myself. I did it the other day with police officers. There's stuff everywhere all the time. We just throw it in the dumpster. But if you give a sign-up sheet, people will help clean up the city. So that's it.
Thank you. Another speaker, please. You're a second timer, so just, I'll get to you. Yeah, Carl, please.
I'm Carl Jacobs, 81 Wyman Road, Keene. Like a lot of folks, I heard these issues and tried to figure out what I could do. I try and look at these issues in terms of what I can do. So I tried to contribute as a city councilor. Some of you know that. And as I listen to this tonight, I guess I'm really, the word sanitation comes to mind. We've been talking about public bathrooms for a long time, and we were hearing about people using the ground as a public bathroom. I think we can do better than this. It's not a huge dollar thing. It has something to do with maintenance, as I understand it. I think let's do something or get off the pot. And yeah, right? And I hear about a cleanup, what do you call it? You mentioned hazardous waste. We have the technology to address a hazardous waste site. Why aren't we addressing it? I understand that there are a lot of other issues that have been brought forward, but this thing about the bathrooms in particular, let's do it. It sounds to me that a lot of people see that it won't solve the whole thing, but it's certainly something that's going to make a lot of things better in a variety of ways. So let's get that done. Get the thing moving in a positive direction.
Thank you. Someone else? Yeah. This is like former councilor nights.
Yeah, the oldie show. Thank you, Chair Greenwald. James Duffy, Winchester, New Hampshire. I'm a board member of 100 Nights, also a member of the guiding council of the Monadnock Interfaith Project. And I also rent a studio on Roxbury Street. so I am in Keene quite frequently. And things are getting a lot more concerning. Some people say worse, yes, certainly. But there's also a lot of community interest and energy around this issue, and that's very heartening. I'm glad people brought up this evening that this is not a new issue. Certainly, there's 50% more homeless people in New Hampshire than last year at this time. That's the first time there's been over 2,000 homeless people in New Hampshire since 2008. And we know what was going on in 2008, a pretty bad recession. I don't think it's helpful, and I'm not speaking officially for 100 Nights, but 100 Nights Shelter has come a long way and is doing a lot of good work for this community. Over 50% of our income, our donations, come from private citizens, civic groups, and private businesses. And that's a testament to Mindy Cambier and all the staff who've worked so hard over the years. But I think when the debate, and I understand we're all afraid, we're concerned, this is shocking, and there's no obvious solution, it's not helpful to draw attention to the shelter as a cause for the problems that we're seeing, and it's not helpful to say that people are coming in from all over. The fact is, people do come from other places. There's an arrangement with the state, but that is not the majority of the people who come into 100 Nights. Most of them are from this area, Cheshire County. And also, I think 11 towns donate annually, as well as the county and the city, to 100 Nights. I want to point out that in Keene or Cheshire County, there's a 0.5 vacancy rate. It's very advantageous for property owner managers, landlords, in that kind of market to invest little and take more out. Keene has the worst housing stock I've seen in many cities its size in New England and other cities. And it's an issue. In 1990, there was a Keene City article about the looming housing crisis. In 2004, it was the culmination of a huge effort, mainly because of issues in Southeast Keene with college students. A committee was formed. Keene State College was involved, city staff, city councilors, businesses, residents of the Southeast neighborhood. There were many, 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 many recommendations that came out. One of them was a disorderly house ordinance. I think the city formed something.
Yep, Jim, I gotta ask you.
All right,
gotta
I'll
ask you to
cut to
wrap
the
up.
chase.
We don't have music to play.
Yes,
off.
all right, there's one thing that the city council has not been able to do. There was a recommendation to have annual inspections of apartments and rental units in the city, and the council voted that down at the time. I think it's imperative to ensure the safety and the health of residents and neighbors in these areas. Also, Keene has a master plan that focuses on neighborhood development. That's what the city can do. Start looking at these neighborhoods. Encourage development that includes middle-income housing, affordable workforce housing, subsidized housing, all within a few blocks of each other. This is a very
Jim, I hate
progressive
to-
trend. All right, I'll stop, but
I'm sorry. You know,
I
just to be
think-
fair to others, so
Yes,
I got to say
the-
thank you.
Thank you.
you need to start legislating and put some more rubber to the road.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Someone else like to, oh. Good evening. You could sit if you're more comfortable or
My
stand.
name is Erica Gascoigne, and I live in Alstead, but I'm a friend of 100 Nights, and I'm so pleased to see that there were 2 board members from 100 Nights here. I just want to give a testimony in a way. We had our friends meeting yesterday, and I was in the donation room with some other people, and just doing some stuff there. And a girl works there. I'm not going to give her name because I don't know, I haven't got permission. But she used to be in the shelter. She was there, she had a 14-year-old, I think it was, and she was pregnant, 2 months pregnant. And she felt so grateful to the 100 Nights for helping her and being there for her, that she now works and gives back to the 100 Nights. So that is a testimony of the 100 Nights and the people that are working and supporting there. So I want that to be an encouragement, because there's some good people there. I talked to someone there yesterday who I had never met before, but he came into the donation room because he was looking for boots for one of the people in there, and he's a guest at the 100 Nights himself. And I asked him, how he's come to be there. Well, he had a job. He was working with autistic children, and apparently whatever this place was closed down. And that put him into a place where he couldn't afford, rent, and he's been homeless. But that's a good guy helping somebody else. And I know the church I go to, which is Hope Chapel, there's a couple at the church that's been coming fairly regularly. They are homeless, but they are keeping away from, an area where there's drugs or anything like that. But housing is hard to come by. And somebody else I know, she has a voucher, from the city, but can she find a place? No, she's homeless. So there is a big problem. But I just want to encourage that 100 Nights is doing such a good job. I think it would be good to get some sort of counselling in the 100 Nights itself, so people, the guests can actually have counselling and help in addressing their issues. But I just want to say, I'm glad to be here. I didn't think I'd speak at all, but I just want to be an encouragement that for 100 Nights particularly. And, the people, we tend to sort of avoid them if we're not careful. They are people loved by God, created by God just as much as we are, and He loves them. And, who knows, we could be in that situation ourselves, but for the grace of God. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, in the front.
Hello, my name is Angela Pape, and I'm a community organizer with Monadnock Interfaith Project. And our organization was very present with the previous ad hoc committee. We had asked to have 2 people appointed as part of the committee. One of them was, one of them wasn't, and then we were present at every meeting. And I'm very grateful that there are steps forward that are being taken. One of our churches has now opened a safe parking program so that people can sleep in their cars, and they're partnering with Southwestern Community Services. That's Church of the Nazarene. But I would say that I would love for whether it's the ad hoc committee or some other committee, the conversation to be reopened. And it was a little frustrating to us that it was sort of, people were cherry-picked for who was on that committee. And I think a lot of wisdom was left out of the conversation. And I think these issues, they're complicated, they're hard, and I really think we need all of our best thinkers and all the perspectives sitting around the table and brainstorming together and thinking together, because it's really going to take all of us. And so I just really encourage us as a community to be leaning in, and I appreciate your perspective on building on the work that we started, because I think there was some good work, but I really feel like we can't just say, oh, we did that report, we're done. We need to keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Elsa Worth, the rector at St. James Episcopal Church on West Street. I'm also here with the Monadnock Interfaith Project. So many people have said so many helpful things, and I've been so appreciative of the respectful feeling in the room. And I came simply to say that when it comes to suffering, all of us suffer. Some people suffer a lot. And I don't think that any of us expected to live in an era of so much suffering, especially as Americans. And I don't anticipate suffering to lessen in the next few years when it comes to poverty and wealth disparity and homelessness and drug abuse and mental illness and lack of care for those things, and a shortage of staff in every industry and organization I know. So I'm here to advocate for community, our community, developing a mature attitude towards suffering. Not to say, oh, we're going to solve this, because these things are huge, mysterious problems, and you're getting into my realm here. You know, these aren't answers that are easy. And sometimes the answers aren't what you like. So I'm here to advocate for wisdom in our deliberations, community communications with one another, and compassion most of all. Because I've seen things in the paper, and I've heard people talk in ways that are truly dehumanizing. And as we're watching in the news overseas, dehumanizing rhetoric leads to violence that none of us wants to see. So I'm here to advocate for continued compassion and respect, as I have happily felt in this room this evening, and pray that our leadership keep that first in mind when we talk about these issues that have to do with suffering that are not easy to solve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Well, that'll be hard to follow, now that we've had our sermon. Kay Kendall, Georgina. I'm third generation Keene, New Hampshire. My grandparents' house was right across the street from Chris Coates. Hi, Chris, if you're still here. And we played together as kids on Church Street, okay? So I know the hood, and I'm still live on Douglas Street. Bought the house back from my parents, okay? So, and I did get out of Keene a little, but I'm back. There's been a lot of talk tonight about vilifying the homeless. So let's all agree that we have some great services in Keene. Let's all agree that we have great shelters in Keene, but let's also agree not to vilify the taxpayers or people who are noticing the uptick in crime, people who are afraid to go out. We do have lousy sidewalks, I have to say. I've been grandma the last 2 weeks, and they're terrible. But we started this, Randy got the ball rolling, but the people in East Keene, we're up in arms. We've had it up to here with what we are seeing, what's happening to people's properties, the break-ins. We had not been seeing police. Let's see, things have been a little bit cleaner. So our activism has helped. So let's not vilify the taxpayers either. Let's not vilify, if you mention anything on Facebook about a homeless person, you get attacked, viciously attacked, intimidated. And we have to say, you know what? We're seeing what we're seeing. Let's break that down to, how about vilifying the villains? And it doesn't mean, we don't know where they came from or which shelter they're from, but if they are doing drugs in public, if they are leaving their needles, if they are selling drugs, if they're doing commerce in the bushes, then we've got people that are criminals that need to be addressed. And that's what we want to address. Criminal activity, safety activity. I am so glad to hear Elizabeth talk about what the city is already doing. I think by getting the ball rolling, I know Randy did his wonderful expose, very sad is what it was. But we want you to know that we really have a problem. And just because it's not new doesn't mean we need to accept it. Yes, there's been a drug problem in Keene. Sat here and talked about, if you build it, they will come. And that was the shelter downtown. And here we are. I will say, I've got pages of notes, I'll put some things in writing, but some simple solutions. Code enforcement, real quick. We have a building that sleeps 48, a few buildings down, someone cannot rent the 5 rooms in their house because code says you can't have 5 people that are not related. We know someone tried to build a building with 4 apartment buildings. They had to break it into 2 because code enforcement said they had to put in a sprinkler system that was too expensive. Therefore, we get fewer houses. So it's things like that. You want to talk about housing, vouchers? You need to change some laws. How about we get rid of the comfort animal law? I'm allergic to animals. I will not rent to anybody who has a voucher because I can't have pets in my house. There's a lot of things like that. The changes, little tweak here and there, that might make a difference. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for being here and hosting this. My name is Lindsay Bartlett. I live at 324 Water Street. And I think what's coming to mind for me is that, first of all, I am so proud to live in a neighborhood that with 100 nights and to be given an opportunity to, as painful as it is, to see all these issues. And I agree with a lot of what a lot of people have said. But sometimes it's what we need. We need it in our face, right? It's been happening, now it's happening to us. So maybe this is an opportunity. I do believe there is some sort of silver lining here. The same would we said with COVID. And the other thing I just want to quickly say is that I am so delighted that there have been a lot of people, I feel like, speaking from the heart, not afraid to express their fears. But we can express those fears, and it doesn't mean that we don't want 100 nights here. It doesn't mean this needs to be addressed. I worked for Monadnock Family Services for almost 18 years. I just retired from a job working in a school for kids that come from trauma, and a lot of them, some of the people there are homeless. We see this. I work with students that are dealing with this. They don't know if there's going to be a bed for them when they go home. The thing is that sometimes that's what it takes for us to be able to open our eyes. And I would like to say that as a society, we tend to be uncomfortable with the dialectic. So on one side, we've got, you can be really, really afraid and concerned. Yes, of course, I don't want to come home and see somebody sitting in my living room that I don't know. But what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? And how am I going to... Maybe there's a few things that I can learn to be able to respond in a way that's not going to aggravate this person. I mean, I'm sort of going off into a tangent here, my apologies. I just get back to, we need to be comfortable with we can be both afraid and fearful, and we can be compassionate at the same time. And we don't have to be comfortable. It's not comfortable. We're not going to be comfortable with this. And I think that's something that we need to understand. And again, just listen to each other listen to understand rather than to respond. And I feel like if we have more of that, we're going to have more solution-oriented thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
So my name's Nicole. I'm a resident of 100 Nights. I've been homeless for probably 4 years, on and off, due to a case with DCYF coming in, taking my kids, my boyfriend going to prison. I can't afford somewhere by myself. I do have a voucher for Section 8, but in order to find an apartment that is still affordable for me is impossible in this town. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have 3 kids, girls, all girls, wonderful kids. I was thrown into the homeless community going from being a stay-at-home mom in Keene to a homeless person in Keene. I understand that people get nervous and concerned about, what people are doing out in front of their yards or whatever on the street. 100 Nights environment inside is like jail to me. We're recorded all the time. We can't bring lighters or cigarettes in our bedrooms. Like, there's so many rules. It's good, but what am I trying to say? You can't control everybody. There are a lot of people there who have gotten comfortable, and I feel like 100 Nights is making people comfortable instead of making them uncomfortable enough to want to better themselves. They're giving them the freedom to use drugs. They're giving them the freedom to spend their SSI checks on drugs. What else is there to do? Nothing. If we can't work, we can't get a place, we can't afford a vehicle, you know, yes, we have shelter, but we don't have the support we need to move forward. There's people that have been in there for years, and they shouldn't be. There's people in there with mental disabilities who don't belong in a shelter. They belong under, you know, in a certain other home. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with the stigma of it because I'm not a drug addict, you know? But me being seen in town with them, I'm looked at like I am, or carrying a backpack, or whatever. I don't steal, I don't lie, I don't disrespect people. I don't know, so it's really hard for me. But I do have some ideas of like the needle thing. You guys have places for doggy bags. Put some up around town for needles. They'll use them. You know, they all try to respect that in a sense. There are some that are lazy and really don't care. But people like me who don't do that, I go around and clean them up when I see them. I carry a sharps container with me because I clean up. What else? I don't know. I just feel like I've tried to get an apartment too, and the landlords tell you, you have to make 3 times the rent in income. I can't work, I'm on SSI. So making $820 a month isn't gonna get me an apartment, especially by myself. My boyfriend's not here, so my only option in this town is to be at 100 Nights or sleep outside, which is now not even a doable thing because you can't camp outside anywhere. You can't even sit next to the bike path without being told that's private property. No trespassing. Like, where can I go sit and relax where I'm not in the shelter around all those drug addicts, around those mentally handicapped people? You know, those are triggers to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask you to wrap up.
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Anyway, thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Laura. I live on Laura Tobin, Center Street. And, you know, I think that, so Nicole is actually not the first person who has said something like that. And, you know, I think for the people like Nicole who are working really hard to get out of that situation, having it projected on you that there's nowhere that you're allowed to be, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And honestly, someone said it earlier about counseling. I feel silly, but I assumed that that was an option there that everyone knew about. And honestly, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like a big part, a big answer could potentially be just offering services, you know, mental health counseling. I mean, access to, so I want to say access to resources, but I also kind of want to preface that by saying that I understand that it is, when you are kind of struggling and when you've fallen and you're in survival mode, you may have resources, but knowing that the resources are there or having the strength and energy to access them is really difficult. And what if there could be courses offered? What if there could be resources offered, volunteers to, you know, offer financial guidance? And how do you plan financially? How do you plan to get out of this? Because really, I think that it's a valid point that I think a lot of people, that it's just kind of a way of life. It has become a way of life because there's not an easy way to understand how to get out of it. I mean, how do you save up for a security deposit when all of your rent is going towards, the emergency day-to-day things? And, Chris had mentioned being on the board of directors at United Way, and their theme this year is imagine what we can do together, which I love. And with all of the people here, wouldn't it be great if we could find some actionable items, whether that is showing up in places that could really help support the community? I would love some action items. Give me an action item. So, thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker.
In the back.
Let me see who's going. Yeah, back row. Good evening.
Hi there. My name is Beth Daniels, and I am the CEO of Southwestern Community Services. This conversation was actually really encouraging tonight. I heard suggestions about sharps containers, lighting, all kinds of things. So that was really good to hear. When I think about the experience of homelessness, I oftentimes think of it on a spectrum of the human condition. Some of the things people said tonight were actually caused you to get a little choked up. And I think that there are places where we can all play to our strength for the solutions along that spectrum. So we've talked about safe parking, sharps containers, the police having more training, having social workers working with them, all kinds of things. So I do think there are some solutions, but I think the key words are actionable steps, and everybody kind of finding the place on that spectrum where they have resources and can play to the strengths that they have available to them. And recognizing that in this day and age, no one's going to pull a card out of their pocket and say that this is the solution. It's a layered problem, so the solutions have to be layered as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Someone else? Oh, hand up. Yes, please.
My name is Molly Penny. I live at 30 Kingsbury Street. I first want to say thank you to the people who are here and to you all who came to the meetings that we hosted at our house. We thought maybe 5 or 10 people would show up. We've had over 37 people from the neighborhood at our house. I also want to thank and acknowledge you, Nicole, for sharing your perspective. I think as we move forward with a solution, it's really important that we hear from people who are directly impacted. I took some notes here because a lot of things were already said. I think the most heartbreaking thing is to hear longtime residents say that they're not sure they want to stay in East Keene, to hear area businesses say that they're having a hard time thriving in this situation. I think 100 Nights is doing some great work. The reality is that if they are over capacity, they won't even be able to do the great work that they are doing. The person who spoke from the Serenity Center, I'm not sure who that was. That's an incredible resource to know that we can just make a phone call and people can help pick up needles. I think it would be really smart to have some signs, maybe along the bike path downtown, just letting people know if, either there's a sharps container yourself or do you see a needle, please call this number for safe disposal. And then the other thing, I guess, is just I'm really inspired by seeing so many people here tonight. I haven't been to a ton of city council meetings, but this feels like a pretty good turnout. And I think, to the point that somebody made earlier, that there's just a lot of energy and there's a lot of passion in this room. And I think if we can direct it towards a solution, we can do really positive things. I did have another concern, though, sorry. Around holding landlords accountable. I think some of the buildings in disrepair, I've spoken with city people about this before, and they've said, that really all you could do is kind of send a letter and hope for the best, and I feel like there could be more for people who are not maintaining their properties. I don't know entirely how all that works, but I would like to find out. I met a friend the other night, and we were just talking about all that was going on, and she told me that she had to use Narcan on somebody in Keene this recently. And I just think that's a really sad way for all of us. So if we can come together and just work together, I think there's a lot of positive stuff that can happen. The neighbors and the community of East Keene obviously we're here. We're excited to make positive change, and I think somebody said, give us a list, tell us what's next. How do we, as neighbors, help to drive that change? And by neighbors, I mean the people who live in 100 Nights as well. They're part of our neighborhood and our community. So how do we all come together to create solutions? So thank you.
Thank you. Any other first-timers? In that case, Vicki, round 2. Thank you for your patience.
Vicki Morton, 275 Water Street. I'm happy to hear that some folks have some possible action steps to move us forward, and it is a really daunting situation that we face. One of the things I'd like to hear is from our police chief about, can we utilize an auxiliary force? What would it look like? Can we hire individuals to be part of the police department that can take lesser calls, or is this just out of the realm of possibilities? So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think we should activate the See Something, Say Something program that we used to have before. I think it would be wonderful if we could have neighborhood associations. The Eastside Keene has gotten together and started having conversations, getting to know our neighbors, so on and so forth. At one time, pre-pandemic, there was a Southside Keene Association used to meet at what was then Benson Home. No, that's wrong. American Home. It's currently American Home. And there used to be a college liaison, a police liaison, and the local ward counselor used to attend. It was informational sharing, it was networking, and if we could replicate that throughout the city, it could help provide information sharing and community building, community development. And the city council is not in this alone. Clearly, the folks who are meeting on the east side of Keene are willing to step up and to help. So all you need to do is tell us what is it you need. If we're going to look at code enforcement or codes once again, is there a way we can help? If we can activate the See Something, Say Something campaign, is there a way we can help? If there's things that we, as the citizens of this community, can do to facilitate actions, to meet goals, let us help. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a good list going, and I'm sure the city manager does too. Any other first-timers? And not, Krishni, come on up.
I just want to reiterate what Vicky said.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Microphone.
Krishni Paul, 84 Valley Street. I want to reiterate what Vicky said. City staff can do everything. We are aware of that. Short-staffed. Tell us what we can do as East Keene neighbors. Give us a list of things we can do. Whatever we can do, be part of a committee, clean up, whatever we can do. We want to do it because we like our neighborhood. We want to live there for a long time. So tell us what we can do, and we'll do it. Put us on a committee. Give us gloves. No, I'll pick up the gloves and the bags. But tell us what to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address? What? Anyone else want to address the committee? Okay, second timer.
Well, when you need a police escort, you can't do better than Chief Stewart. You heard me the first time. I'm sorry I tooted my own horn so much. Sorry for under an incredible amount of stress. There is an unfortunate situation with a psychotic and delusional prevaricator. Anyway, we could easily have a much worse problem in Keene with homelessness, drug addiction, needles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have been downstairs in the lobby, listening very carefully, and I have to say the idea of take out the benches is one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. What the city needs to do is put more benches in and be a little more thoughtful about where those benches are. There's at least, right now, I could count 15 or 20 places on Main Street where the physical infrastructure was made for putting in benches. Gilboa Ave, where the farmer's market is, about a month or two ago, the city took out the 2 benches. And so Marlon and Randy, that used to hang out there all day, 200 feet off Main Street, they started hanging out in front of Cherry Garden. The city took that bench out. In front of Cherry Garden, there should be 2 benches. In front of Fireworks, there should be 2 benches. There should be a bench in front of Mitch Greenwald's office. Instead, there's a 3-foot trash can and a 6-foot granite niche. All these benches were taken out because somebody didn't like to see the homeless person sitting there. I've witnessed it myself over the years on Main Street. This type of attitude has to stop. The homeless are being abused in this Keene, in town. The homeless are being crucified by certain individuals. Every day, I talk to homeless individuals. I stepped outside. I saw 2 individuals that I know from direct personal experience in the last few weeks are homeless. I'm not assuming they're drug addicts, but I know that they're homeless. I spoke with them. She wanted to come up and speak. She needed to use the bathroom. I encouraged her. I want to thank Nicole for speaking. She's a resident of 100 Nights. She was up here because I saw her outside, and I convinced her to come up and speak. I wanted the committee to hear from somebody who's a resident of 100 Nights. She didn't have much good to say about it. There's some staff at 100 Nights. I'm going to say staff and leave it at that. There's staff at 100 Nights that should have been terminated years ago. They should have been hired in the first place. There's staff at 100 Nights that need to be terminated tomorrow. There are problems in 100 Nights nobody wants to talk about. They're lied about, they're lied to, they're given verbal, they're told they're kicked out on a verbal, so there's no documentation. They're gaslit, they're lied about, they're lied to, they're manipulated, they're bullied. There is abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and psychological abuse going on against the homeless every day at 100 Nights and other places in town. 1317 Roxbury.
I have to ask you to wrap up, please.
I'll wrap it up.